Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. My name is Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this video I saw of Lizzo trying her best to defend Kamala Harris and her not really doing much as a VP, and she for some reason thinks that VPs just haven't done much, and no one can think of anything that a VP has done, so which I thought was funny, so we'll talk about that. And I want to talk about Elon Musk and some of this conversation that he had with Jordan Peterson. And I knew that he had an issue with like the transition stuff, and that's because, and I knew that it had touched his family. I didn't know that he himself had played a role in it himself, and so now he regrets that, and he considers himself to be at war with the woke. The sound is okay. Let me fix this sound. Thank you for the comment. You are correct. The sound was not going through the microphone. Does that sound better? Does that sound better? I'm assuming it sounds better. I fixed it, so just waiting for the new comment. Elon Musk, I didn't know that he himself was, tricked in his words and participating in it. So he's against it now. And I also want to talk about this clip of Kamala Harris. Perfecto. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you. So we'll talk about those things. I do apologize for being late. And I didn't change out my countdown music yet because my day was thrown off. I was out and about and my car battery just died. I couldn't even take my key out of the ignition and had to call AAA, and AAA came and, gave me a boost. But then my battery was dying. So, I needed more than a boost. I needed a new battery. So I just had them change it and everything. So it just really threw me off. So I apologize for being a little discombobulated and tardy today, but I thought I'd have to cancel altogether. And it wasn't that quite late getting home, but Craig said, rough day. It was a rough day. It was a rough day. But we're getting through it today. So I thank you guys for your patience and for your views and your comments and your concerns. So anyway, please go to blackteanews.com, check out different content, my website, articles, videos, etc. If you can support, I do very much appreciate you. If you guys can donate online, because it does cost to stream, run my website, all that good stuff. So if you can, again, I appreciate it. If you can't do that, I thank you guys for watching. I thank you guys for sharing and commenting. All that stuff does really support, and it helps other people when you are commenting, when you guys are liking and interactive. That does help the algorithm of people know to watch. So some days you guys are not so chatty, other days you guys are going back and forth with each other, and there's people on YouTube watching, people on Facebook watching. So sometimes I might address, if you're watching on YouTube and I'm talking to someone on Facebook on a comment, you might not know that there's a chat, but there's chats coming from multiple places. I can see all you guys. I do read super chats if you guys want to do that. Not if they're naughty or something, but I will read them if you send them. I do appreciate those. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching back later, you can still send stars later on Facebook, but on YouTube, you guys can do like stickers and super thanks if you're not watching this live. And I thank you to those of you who watch it back later. I know some of you guys wait till you're off of work and whatever. So I just thank you for your time, and make sure that you guys also check out different merch available on the store, like this cool pro-choice men or sus shirts and all kinds of stuff I got on the site. So, and I do also have books and so on. So, I just saw a TikTok. I'm gonna have to reply to it later, but there was this one pretty big Black content creator. And so she's like, Kamala Harris isn't going to win. She's a woman and she's Black. She's not going to win. And I think there are totally people who don't want a woman to lead. for sexist reasons, for reasons that I saw someone who came from a biblical angle and said that when a woman leads, it's a sign of that the nation has fallen, basically, or going, I guess referencing the book of Judges when Deborah had to lead, and she was one of the good ones. There were some really bad judges in that book, but that was the nation obviously wasn't doing too hot, and perhaps it is a sign of weakness when the women do need to stand up and lead when the men don't do a good job. But which I guess that is the case here. They were trying to uphold Joe Biden, and he literally, they just could not hold it together with the whole system propping him up. And just not even a month ago, it all collapsed on the debate stage. But they totally would have kept it going along if they could have. But so yeah, there's people who don't want to support a woman, but there's plenty of people who would. And obviously, Obama was elected, so there's people who want to vote for you just because you're a woman. There's people who want to vote for you just because you're a person of color. They play those identity politics really, really hard. But people are mad at this content creator because she said that. So I saw someone replying to it, like, you're destroying people's dreams and blah blah blah. And Kamala Harris is for you, and Kamala, we need to uplift this woman, and she's for women, and etc. And it was this. I've never seen the content creator. I'm going to assume that he's queer. He sounded very effeminate, black guy. But my question is to these people who say that Kamala Harris is for women. What is a woman? What is a woman? Because if anyone who feels like they're a woman gets to be a woman, then it's not very special. And I don't feel like a protected class when anybody can get their foot through the door. Even, serial child rapists can get to a woman's prison if they say that they feel like they're a woman. And a judge who makes that happen in the Biden-Harris administration they try to promote them to higher court. So are you protecting women like Riley Gaines, women like that who have to swim against people like Leah Thomas? Are you protecting women when you guys pressure different groups to remove age restrictions or age suggestions on puberty blockers and gender surgeries and so on? Is that protecting women when you guys threaten schools to remove their funding if they don't let boys in the girls' locker room? Is that protecting women and standing up for women? Is it standing up for women when a father goes to a school board meeting concerned because his daughter was sexually assaulted by a boy in a skirt, and then he has to hear the superintendent lie about it? So maybe he gets a little rowdy and they arrest him, and that the headlines of that story makes it in a footnote in a letter conspiring with the National School Board and the White House, and they end up sending it to the DOJ asking them, can they use the Patriot Act on these concerned parents? So do not tell me that this woman cares about women. I don't even know if she has the guts, if she has the courage to actually define it. And if she did define what a woman is, she would probably say a woman is someone with special murder rights who can kill their children if they want to, because men certainly can't do that. That's all she cares about when it comes to women. That's the only freaking thing. So don't tell me that these people care about women. They don't, because they get the back seat on this issue when it comes to the trans stuff. They absolutely do. So don't just and you know what, I don't know how much deep into the Trump can make a choice. He has to make a choice, whatever, how he's going to attack her head on or whatever. There's multiple angles. I mean, you can just go straight policy and talk about how she's supposed to be the border czar, and obviously the border is crazy and she hasn't done much or whatever. So she failed on the border. The border is garbage. She's supposed to be tied to that, and she's tied to all this radical stuff. But people need to know, because Biden was supposed to be the let's have the adults back in the room person, and they didn't do that. They let the insane people who were in the asylum run the whole country, and Kamala Harris is a part of that insanity. They need to brand her as radical as she is, remind people that she's out of California, the place where if your child is considering that maybe they're trans, that the teachers are protected from even telling the parents, which is really radical. Because if you have a condition that if people won't say, they have to tiptoe around all of your feelings all the time, or they might unalive themselves, you would think you would want a parent to help that child get some kind of counseling or whatever kind of mental care that they need. And instead they encourage the teachers and the children to have that child lead a double life and teach them how to be manipulative and lie to their parents, so they can keep creating this wedge, so they can just separate them, and then maybe one day have to remove them from the parents' household. So California, the things they're doing in California is absolutely evil, and that is her breeding ground. That is where she's from, and we don't need Gavin Newsom to come and be president to turn America to the worst it could possibly be. We have Kamala Harris. And that's the route they need to go. Every time she mentions something about women, because I know Trump doesn't want to talk about the abortion thing, Kamala Harris she's gonna talk about that all the time, nonstop. She already does. So, but every time they say we're fighting for women, Trump needs to say, what is a woman, Kamala? Do you even have the courage to say it? So that's my 2 cents. I'm gonna call somebody who I know is hooked up with the campaign to spread my thoughts about that. Anyway, I do want to thank you for the super sticker that's coming from Glossy T33. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your sticker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I saw another comment there. We're ready to learn. Okay, so let's get into the news of the day. I want to start with this Lizzo thing that I saw earlier, and I'm going to reply to this too. But Lizzo, she likes to I don't know, pretend that she's quite a political animal. She gives her thoughts. Most of them are garbage, as you expect most entertainers to have garbage sort of opinions on this stuff. But people are really going to try their darndest to get Kamala in office. They are probably going to have so many celebrities at these rallies and events and fundraisers, and it's probably going to be worse than the Hillary thing. But I'm going to I think my dad once maybe said this, but cool is not transferable. That's a problem. So everybody loved Obama, and everybody didn't like him, but he was so cool, he was so savvy, and blah blah blah. And same with Bill Clinton. Came out with his saxophone and his sunglasses, and people thought Obama was cool, and he was the president's celebrity, and all these like elites and Hollywood folks wanted to get in with politics, and he wanted to be a celebrity too. And so they were all, hugging and in the same kind of atmosphere and so on. But that sort of love for Obama and his coolness and his cultural impact didn't really transfer to Hillary. I don't care if Beyonce or whoever did a concert, people showed up, they went to the concert. That doesn't mean they went to the voting booth for Hillary Clinton, because obviously, she won the popular vote, but she didn't obviously win the electoral college where it matters. So, you can't just transfer all of the vibe that someone has and have someone inherit it. The candidate has to stand on their own, and usually the coolest person will win normally. So Hillary did not win against Trump, obviously. And so Joe Biden didn't really have that cool transfer to him either. And he did a basement campaign in 2020, but the world was crazy in 2020. He ran a basement campaign. There was COVID. People had the mail-in stuff. It really changed the dynamic of the race, and it, I guess, changed the dynamic of how people will vote permanently. But it's not as it was in 2020. So, with Kamala Harris, people are going to try, and they're going to try to really attach her with Black culture and I don't know, make her like Mamala. That's what Drew Barrymore said? Got on her knees and asked her to be the mama of America or some kind of garbage. People are going to really try, and they did that video with Ketanji P. Henson. Not Ketanji, I'm sorry. I'm mixing her name with the Supreme Court Justice, Taraji P. Henson. and like they not like us. That was so cringe. And at the end of the day, people, we don't even have to really focus how much on how unlikable she is or her laugh. People will see it and know that she's just not vibing. Some people will decide to be delusional and just go along with it, but mostly people are not gonna, they're just not gonna vibe with it. They can try, and they can send all the celebrities, they can have them door knock, they can have them raise money and get on TV and beg and cry and so on, but they can't make Kamala cool. They can't make her normal. There was an article, I think it was in Axios, about how there was some kind of dinner that they wanted her to go to, and um and they like practiced her eating and talking to get her ready for it, but then they just opted not to go. Um, yeah, it was Axios reported in April 2012. Harris was the guest for a dinner at DC news mogul David Bradley's home, a salon style event Bradley hosts with Washington journalists and newsmakers. Harris's anxiety about dinner was such that her staff held a mock dinner beforehand, with staffers playing participants according to two people familiar with the event. Harris aides even considered including wine in the mock prep so Harris could practice with a glass or two. They ultimately decided against it. So that reminds me of you guys know in Twilight Breaking Dawn, I think it was, is that part 2, when after she had the baby and the baby's, you know, growing or whatever, and they decide to have her dad, that her dad can see her again, and they have to teach her how to be human. They're like, don't move too fast, move your chest up and down so people think you're breathing, and you have to blink, you know, every couple seconds. So it's very funny that her staff has to, you know, kind of teach a grown woman how to, I don't know, be normal, and it's not working. It's not working. So anyway, the cool's not going to transfer, but you will see many celebrities stomp for Kamala. It didn't work for Stacey Abrams, which I think Stacey Abrams had a better vibe than Kamala, like is more natural than her or like Hillary. But Lizzo, you know, she's involved in the politics stuff. She likes talking about it. So she did a video talking about Kamala Harris and how folks say that she didn't really do anything as VP, and she's making the case that that's just kind of normal.
For everyone saying that Kamala Harris didn't do anything when she was VP, please, for $5,000, do not use Google. Tell me what any vice president has ever done during their term that was notable that you noticed. The vice president's job is to take a back seat and support while the president does everything that's forward facing. And it's funny because when Joe Biden was VP, the only things I really remember him doing was making cool videos with Barack. But when he ran for president, I didn't hear that same, he didn't do anything when he was VP from people. So I wonder why y'all are saying it now. Can we all just be for real? I think there's enough BS in the world. Let's all be for real and just say our quiet parts out loud because the discourse is tired.
So I didn't remember when I first saw this video that she said that for $5,000, and I know she's good for it. I mean, I know she has it. I don't know if she's going to actually start dishing out money. But immediately, without Google, I know that Mike Pence was in charge of like the task force with COVID, and you had Democrats, especially early before things got super politicized, like Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo, who were really complimenting the administration, saying they're being attentive to our needs. They're you know, they're updating us on information. They're giving, you know. So I know you guys, they wanted us to say something bad, but they're kind of doing a good job right now. Now, eventually, you know, it was knives out as much as they could, but Mike Pence was very much over the COVID task force, especially handling the different states. So I'll take my $5,000, Lizzo. I'll take my 5 grand, please. I can tell you something Joe Biden did. Joe Biden was able to hold up $1 billion loan guarantee for Ukraine until they fired the prosecutor that was looking into the company Burisma that his son was on the board of. Is that 10,000 right there? Biden did more than take pictures. That man, he enriched himself. I know Joe Biden also weighed in and told Obama not to go after Osama bin Laden. According to Joe Biden, only like 2 people in the room encouraged him, and it wasn't him, and it wasn't Hillary Clinton. So there you go. I'm already up 10 grand. And to me, this is wild because Lizzo is. I looked up how old she was because I'm like, is she younger than me? But she's actually a year older than me. So I'm 35. She's 36, and I just kind of find it kind of hard to believe that she is unaware of the fact that people thought that Dick Cheney was basically in charge of the Bush administration. I find that so hard to believe that people don't know that. I find that so hard to believe. Now, I know we're in our 30s, mid 30s, and that was a long time ago now. We were young during that time. I was in middle school when September 11th happened. And so, she's probably in the 8th grade, maybe, or going into high school. But I assume she was in middle school too. So, we were young during that time. But I mean, there's that movie with Christian Bale that came out a couple of years ago, where he, gosh, he looked like him when they did the film. I didn't watch it, but that was a huge thing. People saying that Bush was an idiot. They're so much nicer to Bush now that he's out of office and they can have time to reflect. Like, he's such an old man and he's so nice. And look at Michelle giving him candy. And he likes to just paint pictures of old people. Oh, Bush, he's so nice. I wish we could go back to the days of those stuffy Republicans that were so blah. Now they miss people like Bush. When Bush was in office, it was like, oh, Bush doesn't care about black people. Bush is so dumb. Bush can't talk. Bush blah 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 blah. People hated him back then. But yeah, people were saying that Dick Cheney was actually running the country. As a matter of fact, there was a big controversy with September 11th because people were saying that Dick Cheney was the one who actually gave the order to shoot down the plane, the plane that ended up like crashing in a field. There was an order to shoot down the plane because they didn't know if it was going to hit another building, if it was going to lead to more loss of life, and so there was an order that they could shoot it down. And they're like, well, how did the president tell the pilot in time to make that order? Was it actually just coming from Dick Cheney? Did he have the authorization to do that? Just shoot down a plane full of people? Like, we get why, but who actually just, they said that Bush gave the order. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. That I'll go with the main narrative, but what they say that Bush did it. But those are the sorts of things that people were saying during that time. So this idea that the vice president does nothing, well, maybe it's just because you're not paying attention. But this argument, first of all, her saying that they're there for support to make them look good. That's what your wife is supposed to do. You didn't describe a vice president. You described a wife. And and you describing it as just a support thing, like looking at through this extra effeminate kind of lens. Is that because you're a woman, or because Kamala is a woman? Because that's just, I don't think how men would basically describe that kind of role for a man to play. Like, you're supposed to be ready to go if this person dies. So if you're really saying, well, the vice president, they're just there as a cheerleader, basically, if that's what they're there for, then her experience as the vice president doesn't justify her being the top pick to be president. because she obviously doesn't actually have real experience then. And it would be much better if people backed a governor who has some kind of executive experience. So go call Gretchen Whitmer, go call Josh Shapiro, go call, please don't call Gavin Newsom, go call one of those people who have actual experience leading, because those people, apparently be more competent at the job than Kamala Harris, who you think is just supposed to be around and make Joe look good, which I wouldn't even say she does a very good job of doing that either. She's so unlikable. They only bring her out every so often. They've had to try to revamp her personality several times, and it just hasn't. She's never stuck the landing. So again, she's describing a wife, and even first ladies do stuff. I don't think I'll get another $5,000 for saying this, but we all remember that Michelle Obama was on a crusade to ruin school lunches everywhere. You know, have you ever gone on like Twitter, which is now called X, but during that time around when she was on her like tirade against school lunches, and people just started posting pictures of their school lunches, and like I saw a slice of pizza. It was pepperoni pizza, but it had like one pepperoni on it. They're just like, thanks, Michelle Obama. It was just stuff like that. And people talking and like jocks talking about how now after the changes with their food, they're not getting enough nutrition in school, and they're, so hungry and near about to pass out when they do their sports because the lunch is so bad after the restrictions that they, put on because of Michelle Obama. So um even first ladies find something to do. So this idea that the vice presidents don't do much, their job is supposed to be the president of the Senate, and they do break ties and preside over the Senate, which Kamala Harris apparently it won't preside over the Senate when BB goes to speak, which no, but they didn't really have anybody there to greet him when he came, which was very disrespectful. um this is just such a bad take, man. I wonder. Did you guys need Google? Did you guys need any Google? um, but my sister said I will never forget what Michelle did to the lunches. Yeah, I was out of school by then. I graduated 07, so I didn't get to experience that, but I know they like, you know, um vastly changed the lunches. Um they vastly changed the lunches. So Lizzo needs to go somewhere with this tired take. And her implication, I'm assuming at the end she said, let's not, kid ourselves or whatever. I'm assuming the reason is because she's a woman, or because she's a half black woman, you know. If that's or just a woman of color, we could say, is that the implication that people are saying, oh, she didn't do anything? Well, maybe it's because she was designated as the borders are, and the border is trash. Like, there are things that they put her over, and probably maybe to set her up to fail. Because how much can she actually kind of do of it? They set her up to be the face, while Biden and Mayorkas didn't really move to make any kind of significant difference on the border. So um, I think they hate her guts. To be frank, that's the vibe that I get. I think most people probably don't like her too much, and don't see oh, she quarter black. She quarter. I mean, her daddy is light, really, really light. So um there is a discussion going on about people saying that Kamala isn't actually black, and people need to stop saying she's black, and she only claims that she's black when it's convenient and stuff. And um she's biracial. Like Obama was biracial, and people can be proud of their vast background. But it is, as far as like, this is Savvy wrote something about it last night trying to explain, because someone was like, I'm very confused about all this stuff, like what is this dynamic going on with people talking about this? And she just pointed out that you know she doesn't have like the ties to African Americans, You could say African American and literally just come from Africa and be an immigrant and be African American, but most people they think African American people who are black who've been in who have ancestral roots that they can trace back to the country, like hundreds of years, well, not hundreds, like a lot, but like maybe 100 plus, or so on. So like, you know, ancestor of slaves. That's not her history. So and she just didn't have, she went to Berkeley and she just didn't have a lot of experiences people would dictate as that kind of experience. There is no one black experience, but when Kamala's like, they ain't like us, I don't think you like us either, ma'am. It's, but being you is fine. Everyone can be who they are. I don't think someone has to tick some kind of box. Unfortunately, she's from the party that likes to tick boxes and likes to make sure that people are in them. And if you break out of them, then there's something wrong with you, something bad. So you should be devoured by your own monsters. Like I want to vote for you based on your merit, on your policies, and what you will do. You know, there's a lot of like personal things you can get with Kamala, with her stuff with Willie Brown and blah 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 blah. But she's bad enough all on her own as far as her ideas and her rhetoric and what she would like to implement. So we can, we don't have to, I know people want to diss her blackness, or because they feel that they're trying to break the identity politics stuff that will attach black voters to her. And I don't know if that's necessary, and I don't know how much people will care at the end of the day to make a big difference. I think reminding people that um basically she will be a Gavin Newsom in the White House is good enough. And that when I think my rant earlier about you don't actually care about women if you can't define them and if you won't protect them their spaces and all the other stuff, that's a good thing to point out. But the thing that voters actually care about the most is the border, and she did absolutely fail on that front. There was do you guys remember when they asked her like about the border, and she's like, we've been to the border, and like, but you haven't been to the border, and she's like, and I haven't been to Europe. um that just shows the absolute insincerity of Kamala Harris, and a problem that she's going to continue to have, and one that we just can't up and forget about. So I'm trying to find it. I know that I saved it. Here we go. Nope, that's not. That's another one. That's a montage of unburdened by what has been unburdened. Trying to find. Not sure. I know I have it somewhere. Let me search for it. It's got to be easy to find. But you guys know what I'm talking about. Here we go. This just sums her up in such a wonderful way. The lies, the insincerity, the awkwardness, the
Put a button.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
Well, put a button.
Okay.
Do you have any plans?
What does Europe again? Like, I know we talked about this when this was like fresh, but like, what does Europe have to do with anything? Like, why he's asking you why you haven't been to the border, because if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, and you haven't talked to the people on the ground who has to deal with drones that the cartel is sending over, to just see the extreme numbers, the people were saying, hey, we're here because of you and Biden, if you don't see that with your own eyes, then you don't understand the depth of how awful the problem is. So that's why it was bad about, not going to the border. And I think when she actually went to the border, it wasn't even like in the real troubled area. So they could totally blast this woman on merit, which she has none. Like she's just awful all the way around. So anyway, let's move on. Elon Musk said some interesting things in an interview with Jordan Peterson, and Elon Musk is getting involved in the election in a way that he hadn't before. And so he didn't vote for Donald Trump last time, which seems wild to me because he's so smart. And I'm like, why? Like, how can you be so smart and still come to the conclusion to vote for Joe Biden? Anyway, he has endorsed Trump. They're giving a buttload of money. I think it was 45 million to a super PAC every month. I was talking to someone earlier, and they said they didn't get JD Vance as the VP, or they thought that was interesting. And I was like, JD Vance is a pick from the donors. And they're like, oh, really? And you can look up articles and start reading about JD Vance and his ties to Silicon Valley. But Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, they wanted him. So he is now the VP. But he's really involved in a way that he wasn't before. And we know that free speech is really important to him. He bought X and it's a very good thing that he is over X, and people get to share news and information in a way that they hadn't before. That we have a freedom with our information in a way that we didn't have in the last election. I think it is so good that community notes exist, because before there'd be someone in the press or whatever who would spread a video around, it would start circulating and get all these views, and then you find it wasn't true, and maybe they did a correction in the thread under that, and it didn't get as many retweets, or maybe it's not even the same thread, maybe it's a different tweet that just doesn't get retweeted as much, and people don't learn the truth. Now with the community notes, if you say that something that's untrue, someone can add a note to it and add some context there. And then even if you're not following like that page or that post, eventually you get some kind of notification. It's like, hey, did you know like a community note was added to that thing that you liked? So you'll learn after the fact that, oh, that thing that you spread around was not true. So it's one of the best things. I mean, there's things about the new X that some people aren't fond of, and people have voiced concerns about that, but I think it's really interesting that they made the community notes, and that's one of the best things about the new X. So I appreciate what he's done, what he's been willing to pay out of pocket for free speech and information. And there's a reason for the shift, because he can look around, and I think any honest, smart person can kind of look around and see the state of our world and how much it's been declining. But he himself has suffered personally because of the woke mind virus, and he has said he's pledged to fight against it. So this is a clip from his interview with Jordan Peterson on the Daily Wire.
It happened to one of my older boys, where I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys, Xavier. This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on, and we had COVID going on, and so there was a lot of confusion. I was told, oh, Xavier might commit suicide if he.
That was a lie right from the outset.
Incredibly evil. And I agree with you that people that have been promoting this should go to prison.
That's
so I was
connection.
tricked into doing this, it wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs. Anyway, and so I lost my son essentially. They call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and there's lots of people in that situation now.
Right.
It's not pretty, and lots of demolished kids.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason to be the final straw. All right, so let's.
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that, and we're making some progress.
Join the club.
Yeah.
He vowed to destroy them after that. That's a pretty powerful enemy. That is a pretty darn powerful enemy. So, again, I've heard him talk about it and that it's touched his family in that way. I didn't know that he himself had participated, signed those documents, and basically, I guess he says the woke mind virus killed his son. I guess essentially you could say he was tricked into signing the death warrant. So I can't imagine how he personally feels as a parent. Knowing what happened to his child, knowing the role that he played, but obviously it left its mark since now he's sworn revenge, not prepared to die, I guess. I wonder how it all went down because I'm listening and he's like, there's COVID, there was confusion. I don't know if that meant there's a lot of feelings with the child and their confusion, Xavier's confusion, and so on. And just probably lots of stuff was exacerbated during that time for lots of people. A lot of people had mental health crises during that time. As far as the puberty blockers and not doing the due diligence there, I mean, that's rough and something he'll have to carry. Of course, that should have been thoroughly explained, and I think there's a lot of medical malpractice going on with this gender ideology stuff, certainly. But it is very interesting that someone that powerful, that influential, that wealthy could be tricked in this sort of way. Or manipulating this sort of way, but they do emotionally manipulate the parents to say, hey, if you don't go along with this, then they will unalive themselves. They'll take their own life. And that's incredibly scary to these parents. So they may not want to go along with it, but if you say that their child is going to die, there's so many problems with that. One, people will generally grow out of this stuff if you leave them be, but there is so much pressure to just accept and affirm this stuff that a lot of children don't get the chance to really grow out of it. And then there's so much money behind it, people don't want to, they'd rather have these folks be slaves to big pharma for the rest of their lives. So why would they just kind of let them go on? Plus there's like ideology attached to it too. It's not all just making money. There's people who like actually believe in it and think that they're doing the right thing. They're convinced of it, but it's not good to live a lie, guys. To live so contrary to your nature, to your design. It's just a rebuke of order. And it's obviously leading to a lot of chaos in our society, broken hearts and broken people, broken children, broken families, and delusion with sadness that still doesn't go away because people don't want they call it dead naming. They still don't want to be called that name. And so this feeling that they're trying to escape by transitioning, it continues to follow them. If you don't go along with how they're playing that role, that they still might unalive themselves. So it's really taking the whole society hostage with the person going through the delusion. So they should have just, let him be, work through it. I think it's such a sad, sick thing for doctors to push that. Like, oh, would you rather have an alive son or a dead daughter? In this case, would you rather have a daughter or a dead son or an alive daughter? Is probably the line that they fed him. It gives the impression that that is what's going to happen. So if you give that impression that that's kind of just the normal thing that happens when they cannot transition, and you're building an expectation like that's just the normal thing. Like they almost have permission is a strong word, but we'll just say that for now. Like you're almost kind of granting them permission, like that would be the reasonable thing for them to do. If we don't say, oh, yeah, Xavier is a woman. If you don't want to do that, then it's reasonable. This is a reasonable route for these kids to go to unalive themselves. We need to stop building that expectation. If you take your life, something is wrong with you. If you're thinking about taking your life, something is wrong with you. It's wrong. Everybody can have tough circumstances, but the fact that we can't rally around and somehow change them to comfort in the situation, there's something wrong, some kind of imbalance, some kind of, maybe you're going through a bout of depression, some kind of mental health distress. We have to fix it. But changing your body isn't going to restore your mind. That takes other sort of work. There's an outward manifestation of what's going on inside, and that needs to be addressed, because the society cannot live in a padded cell with you for forever. That's not fair. That's not right to anyone involved in this. So my heart goes out to Elon and these other parents. It makes a lot of sense now. He said he's going to move SpaceX out of California because in California, Gavin Newsom signed a bill saying, if parents, the teachers can like hide information, or they'll be protected when they don't share information about children transitioning, which is evil. It's evil. Gavin Newsom has signed some really evil things, and Trump needs to nail Kamala to these crazy California policies. She's from there. She's done some wild things. The Biden administration has done some really wild things, and she will be worse. That's what they need to focus on. Don't California my America. Maybe he won't win the votes in California by putting it that way, but don't California my America. That needs to be the focus. Like what they do in California is way, I know they're trying to make 2025 seem so scary. I haven't really looked at it, but I'm assuming it's probably like 90% of things I might agree with it. I don't know. I haven't read it. I really don't want to read 900 pages. I'm kind of like thinking, should I skim it in the very least and be like, so I can say, this isn't actually that bad. I haven't looked at it, and most of you haven't looked at it. Most people talking about it haven't looked at it. But as scary as they're trying to make it seem like 2025 is, what's actually going on today is way more concerning. And that's what needs to be hammered in. That's what needs to be hammered in. So the Biden White House, they put out guides about affirmation, which includes gender surgery, top surgery, bottom surgery, hormones, and all that stuff. They pressured like way past to not have any kind of age, restrictions or limitations or recommendations for the different surgeries. And then and the New York Times wrote about that. We talked about it on the show. And then after that went viral, they made a statement like, oh, we're not for surgeries. Yeah, right. Yeah, why is Rachel Levin, who's obviously for that stuff, your assistant health secretary? Don't kid a kidder, man. We understand. We understand that it made you look bad and your fancy New York Times called you out. So now you wanted to say something. That's what we need to focus on. And the border and stuff too. Like, how can Kamala Harris care about women when these people are coming across the border and sexually assaulting a 12-year-old for 2 hours before they brutally end her life? How is that protecting women and children? How is that protecting women and children when the people coming across the border are trafficked and they don't make sure that they're actually with family? Trump and them, there's so many people coming, coyotes bringing people who weren't family. They would do on-site DNA testing. And then people are mad because you're separating folks. People aren't even coming with their families. So, you know, I pray that his son is still there. His son is just scarred and wounded, unfortunately. But you know, I pray that he finds his revelation in who he is again. It's happened for many. There's detransitioners out there, but poor Elon. And poor Xavier. I mean, he had to get sold the lies to even believe them to begin with. And they guilted, emotionally blackmailed this poor man into destroying his son. There's another clip that was interesting. And Richard Dawkins said that he was a cultural Christian, and Jordan Peterson brings it up, but Elon, I guess, thinks himself as a cultural Christian.
I'm actually a big believer in the principles of Christianity. I think they're very good.
So in what sense then are you not religious? Well, so Dawkins just came out 3 weeks ago or thereabouts and announced that he was a cultural Christian, right? And so the question,
right? I would say I'm probably a cultural Christian.
Okay, so
I was brought up as an Anglican and I was baptized. I'm actually a big believer in.
So this cultural Christian, that what sense are you not, you know, religious, and that pause and kind of smile, you know, I think if you're not a total kind of I don't know, weirdo, I think, or it's, let me not say weirdo. Let me be more intellectual than that. There's a lot of people with church hurt and atheist angry at God and or whatever, who sell the myth that Christianity has been so bad when that's not true. There's so many charities, hospitals, so much has scientific advancement, so many good things have come out of actual Christianity to advance the world, but also the ethical implications around the world, particularly in our country and stuff, are due to Christianity. And I think most people can kind of realize that, but there's been some new atheists who have, in one case, is no longer an atheist because they're waking up to the fact that we need something more than just secularism, and that we need some kind of ethics grounding us. And it's actually a good thing, even if you don't want to be a Christian, that you live in a Christian country that values democracy, and not pure democracy, obviously, some kind of representative republic or whatever, you know, that people value justice and mercy and peace and protecting the innocent and equality, and, you know, that God is no respecter of persons, that we're all made in the image of God, that you know, the idea that Blackstone's, gosh, what is it called? What the idea of like I'd rather let like 100 guilty men go free to instead of like convicting one guilty man. That idea comes from like pleading about Sodom and Gomorrah and stuff. There's a ton of different principles that we see incorporated into our world that it's really, really good. And if you start kind of straying from that, you go to this really secular place or humanist position, where the idea is just human flourishing, and that's just not good enough. Like Elon talked about what happened with his son. It reminds me of a debate that this Christian guy had. I don't know much about the Christian guy. I've only seen him during this debate. And he had a debate with this pretty big atheist, humanist guy. And the Christian guy was like, well, the atheist was complaining about the new Speaker of the House. This is when he had just basically got the job, and how he was a Christian and the things that he believes, and they don't like homosexuality, blah blah blah. And this guy is into a trans person, and so on. So he's real big on the gay rights. and and he was going off about how, Christianity is bad. We need to focus on human flourishing and stuff. And so the Christian, when he had his rebuttal, he's like, let's just say that, let's just say Christianity isn't true. It's still better to pretend that it is, because if we just go with this whole human flourishing situation, like who exactly is flourishing? The ethics of this is just to allow you to believe a lie, and that's how you get situations where you can have a man say that he's a woman. And he just starts going down that route, and he made the atheist so mad that he like rage quit and just would not debate. And then there were some people in the audience mad at the Christian guy, which I thought he like whipped everybody. They just did like a Q&A after that, and I think he just kind of whipped everybody after that. But he had a good point that when you talk about human flourishing, like for who, like subjective to who, and what makes you think that all these roads you want to go down where there's this disorder, that we're going toward a good place where it's like, oh yeah, kids, minors, sure, they can chop their titties off and make themselves sterile if they feel like they might be an opposite gender. Like how would they even know that? How do you say that's good for human advancement? Like maybe God knew what he was doing with the whole like man, woman become one flesh, and leave your mom and your dad and cleave to your wife, and order and stuff. Because even when you have people who are same-sex couples, they still feel like a need for family. And how do they do that? They pay a surrogate, they rent a womb and get some sperm. Well, I guess they don't. If it's two lesbians, they don't need to rent a womb, but if it's two dudes or something, they'll get an egg, they'll rent a womb, and they use a different womb and a different egg so they can separate as much kind of I guess legal walls as possible from the women who do the work for carrying the baby. And they commodify these children, and they make them and they grow them, and then they get to take them home like cute little handbags, and they build a motherless life for these children. Or if it's two women, they build a fatherless life for these children. Unfortunately, kids don't always get a mother and a father because of whatever life circumstances. But I would say that you are inherently entitled to a mother and father. You would not exist without having a mother and a father. So to purposely design a child to live a motherless or a fatherless life, I say that is evil. And I don't care how much, it doesn't mean you can't love that child afterwards, but you've done them a great disservice. A great disservice. At the very start of their lives. At the very start of their lives. Someone shared this video on TikTok of this lesbian asking this little girl, and she was raised by lesbians, if she misses her, if she wanted a dad. And so I'll just show you guys the video.
Do you ever wish, Lucia has two moms. I'm not one of them, but she has two. Do you ever wish that you had a dad?
Yes.
Why?
Because dads are a little bit stronger, kind of. But girls can be stronger.
Have you seen your mothers? They're very strong.
Not as strong as Uncle Michael.
Oh yeah? So what do you need a stronger person for? To like, lift heavier things?
No, to lift me up.
Oh, to lift you up.
And I once heard someone that has a dad, and I made friends with them, and she said, in the pool there's this floaty, and they lay in it, and their dad picks the floaty up. He picks it up and hold it like this, and then they like clean our pen.
Okay, so you want a dad so he can lift things, including you.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other reasons you want a dad?
No, not really.
So really, you just want your moms to go to the gym and get stronger. So if your moms could lift you over your head in the pool, would you still want a dad?
Yes.
Yeah, so nice editing there. Um she can't even properly articulate why, but she knows that she wants a dad. She has a dad. She wouldn't exist without one. I don't know how, she came to be conceived or whatever, but um obviously there was a man involved some kind of way. You know? And it's so bizarre to say, I know someone who has a dad. Is aren't most people they don't have dads? It was just an odd way of phrasing that, man. Such an odd way of phrasing that. You can't just, I'm sorry, two women don't make a dad. Two dads can't make a mom. And this idea that men and women are just interchangeable like that is how you get this outgrowth of men can be women, women can be men. Like one time Chloe Cole was complaining about conservatives, like, I don't know specifically Daily Wire, but it was a conversation when a bill or something was passed about the marriage equality, something that they did not too long ago. And she just didn't understand why conservatives still wanted to hang on to traditional marriage. And I just thought that was interesting because I'm like, you can't connect the dots on how to basically 2008, shift. Well, the move, well, that's not when Obergefell kind of got overturned, but when gay marriage became illegal in California in 2008, after popular vote of the people of California, people didn't want it because they said they're gonna teach, if it becomes legal, they're gonna teach it in the schools. So that's why they voted it down. And the and the campaign that was trying to keep gay marriage are like, that's not true. That's not true. It was totally true. And now fast forward to California. And now if your kid is trans, the teachers get to hide it from the parents. That's the shift that's happened in not that long of a time span. Politics, maybe it's like 100 years, but it's not literally 100 years, but maybe it feels long, but it's really like a blink of an eye how short of a time span we have just jumped. There was a huge slippery slope that was really, really slick. But yeah, so now there's all this stuff that's in the schools that parents are fighting to get out of it, and fighting to get out of the schools and the libraries and so on. And you got the drag queen story time hour. It's just really evolved from there. But which if adults want to have consensual relations and make contracts and say that if I get sick, I want to make sure that they're in the hospital with me or get to make decisions for me, I think that's fine. If they want to do stuff like that, I get it. I think it's but the nature of the family and how it organically happens, it's just not the same. The male and the male, the female and the female. If I tick off some people today, it's just not the same. Like men and women aren't the same, and that's fine. That doesn't mean that they're not equal, but they're just not the same, and you don't treat them like they're the same. So a union between two people who care about each other and want to have a whatever, that's fine. I wouldn't say that it's the same as a marriage, and certainly doesn't have the same kind of cultural significance as what we consider or call perhaps a traditional marriage. But people still want families, and that's why they'll go get those surrogates and start building babies and deny children of their biological parents to appease their feelings. So I mentioned all that back to Elon's point about being a cultural Christian, is that these people like the society that Christianity built, but there's things about it that they themselves don't really like. So when enough people are like, I don't want to do those things, you get to the point where so many people who leave the church or whatever, they'll have excuses like, well, I don't like this thing in the Bible. God does this thing. This thing is mean. And what kind of God, blah, blah, blah. And they don't debunk that God is real. They don't debunk that anything is true. They just don't like it. Therefore, they have to convince themselves that it's not true. But just because you don't like God doesn't mean he's not going to get you on Judgment Day. You know, you can't be like, I don't like you. And he's like, okay, we don't have to see each other. Like, this is a decision you made, bro. You know, it's not going to it doesn't stop him from being real just because you don't like him. But if all these people don't want to follow the ethics in the Bible and want to live for their human flourishing, their personal sort of flourishing, and go by their own rules, then you will have a society that rejects those things that make the country great where you live. And you're going to wake up and be like, oh, we really lost something. So I understand why people want to be culturally Christian, but if we don't have enough actual Christians, we're going to have an issue. Now, some people, I understand it's just a belief thing. Maybe they can't quite get there. I don't know how many people who like are devoted to seeking truth won't find it. Like, I believe if you actually like want to find it, you'll find the truth. But there's a lot of people who say they want to seek the truth, but they won't accept any kind of evidence because it's more of a heart issue than a mind issue. But maybe there's a reason why you like the society that's built with Christian ethics. And maybe, you know, it's not just that they're nice, but the things in it are true, you know, morally true, etc., etc. And you need to think kind of deeper on if it works for society, maybe it'll work for me personally. Maybe it'll work personally for my family. And maybe we need to do more than just be cultural Christians. Maybe we need to actually follow the good book, you know? There are people who follow like the precepts in it, you know, and they themselves actually aren't even Christian, aren't believers, but they're like, you know, there's something to this thing. Anyway, last thing I want to mention before I let you guys go, because I did mention it, this video with Kamala Harris. I won't talk long about it. It's just like a 14-second clip about, she mentioned abortion. And I already posted a short of this on Facebook and on, I think on Facebook, on YouTube, and TikTok. So if you're on my socials, you've seen this already, but here we go.
And let us all agree, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body.
The government has to do with her body. Oh, Kamala. So I already mentioned on my socials that this is really rich from the administration that absolutely 100% forced down the vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, for the military. I mean, people who were ejected from the military for not getting it, and for employees. They did the OSHA mandates, forced it down on the employers that they had to make the employees get the vaccine. If they didn't get the vaccine, then they had to be tested, which didn't make sense because you get the vaccine and still catch it and spread it. So you really should have been testing everyone. But why they decided to treat people differently is because they wanted to force people to comply. They wanted to break down their will until they complied. And when you say the government shouldn't tell people what to do with their own bodies, that's bull crap. The government tells people what they can and cannot do with their bodies all the time. Some things make sense, like, hey, you cannot use your body to just go choke somebody out or, you know, unalive them or whatever. That's a pretty good rule. There's certain things you can't ingest in your body, certain drugs you can't take. If you do certain self-harm to yourself, you're probably going to end up in some kind of institution for a while. So you just can't do everything that you want to yourself. That's just not how it works. And you certainly cannot do everything that you want with your body when you start infringing on someone else. So that's the issue with abortion, is that obviously there's another body inside of your body. And you really need to make the argument And I understand it's in your body, but you do need to but the government does have an interest, or ought to have an interest, in preserving the unborn child's right to life. So you do have to make the argument on why they should allow this special murder right. Like, it's not murder, it's legal. It's not legal everywhere. But why do you think women should have the special right to commit premeditated homicide against their child? You have to explain that, and it's got to be a pretty good, darn good reason. Sorry, you got to explain that. You got to explain. You're giving special rights to fetuses. Every fetus has been through a uterus. Everyone who's lived on this planet has had this privilege of having a mother. Sorry. It's not special. It's not special. Fathers don't get the right to unalive their kids. They don't get that option. It's a special right that women particularly want, and you have to justify it. I wish I was on the debate stage so we could have a conversation about this. I wish I could get that opportunity. I really wish. But I know Trump doesn't even want to really talk about this at all. As far as the religious part of this, like, you can hold on to your sincere beliefs, but let's all agree, like, no, you're not a libertarian. What you're saying isn't even true. You don't the ethic that you're trying to espouse, you don't even believe it. But as far as people can just basically have beliefs and just keep it to themselves, secular people don't do that. The reason why you think that the child can be killed is because people hearing me say child, they'd be like, it's not a child. Or people say it's not human, it's not alive. Even so many debates, I hear people say, it's not human, it's not alive. Like, what species is it? Well, it's human. Okay, well, do you think it's living? How does it grow if it's not alive? Okay, well, it's technically alive, but okay, yeah, you don't consider it in some kind of philosophical way that it's alive or philosophically human. So you have a belief, right? So you guys are telling Christians to be quiet about their beliefs. Their terrible beliefs that you shouldn't go around unaliving people. How dare they think such a crazy thing? But you guys want to go around and say that we can't unalive certain people because you don't think they're people, because you choose to believe that. Which worldview is the infringement here? Which worldview here is actually the danger? Because I don't have a body count. My worldview doesn't require that stacks of children be dead. So I don't think the Christian perspective are the bad guys here. That we're all made in the image of God, and we all deserve protection against violence and justice if someone infringes upon a right to life. I don't think that's a crazy worldview. And I know it's not crazy because people hold that worldview for every other case except for abortion. Except for that, if a vulnerable child is in their mother's womb, they're like, oh, well, as long as that child, no one else can take care of it, then okay. So if a child needs their mother, then they don't deserve to be protected from violence. That's what you're saying. I think that's a crazy worldview, and you're going to have to justify it. But my belief isn't the one that's dangerous here. But I have other beliefs, though. Like, in general, I think it's wrong to murder people. But people don't say, well, we'll keep that to yourself. Don't tell people what to do with their bodies. If someone wants to go commit sexual assault against someone, like, they can do whatever they want with their body. No one says that. Oh, if someone wants to go choke and punch an old granny with their body, don't keep that to yourself if you're not for that. But people don't have the government tell them what they can do with their own body. No one would say that, because we understand that there's an infringement going on. The only way to talk the way that she talks is to ignore that there's a human life involved. And I know that's what they're doing. I know that's what they're trying to do. And it's unfortunate that we don't have Republicans that are really willing to step up and remind people every time this conversation goes down that we are talking about taking the life of human beings. So I don't know how these conversations will go on the debate stage, because Donald Trump, I don't see her messing up like Joe Biden messed up. I don't see that happening. And from my understanding, Trump will just concede instead of being able to look her in the eye and say, I understand your feelings toward this, but all Americans need to consider that we are talking about taking the life of a human being. That even if you take the pill, you are talking about suffocating and starving a human being to death. If you are talking about, it being a little older, you're talking about sucking them up, dismembering them, ripping off their limbs, poisoning them. So we can have a conversation of why that should be allowed, but you have to have a pretty darn good reason. And the Democrats want it for any reason at any point in time. And Roe v. Wade fell because of a 15-week ban. Most people support a 15-week ban. That's the majority of Americans believe by that point, it's too far. Only like 10% of Americans, and I think that's crazy, want no restrictions. But most people don't want anything past 15 weeks. Most people just want exceptions for, well, the plurality would prefer if it was, I think, just life of the mother, rape and incest. I think I have to look at the numbers again. It could just be, I think that's the plurality. But if you take that number plus the 15-week number, you get a majority of Americans who really don't want it past 15 weeks. And a 15-week ban in Mississippi is what took down Roe v. Wade. So when people think about that, because most people don't really want it past 15 weeks or definitely not past 20. Most people are actually against Roe v. Wade if they understood what the heck that it did. Now, I don't believe you should have an abortion at any point of the pregnancy, but it really frustrates me how Republicans have basically surrendered this position. And even the way they're arguing that it should be a states' rights issue is super immoral. And Byron Donalds was on Bill Maher talking about, I have to do a separate video talking about their conversation. But the Democrats are saying that basically you need Roe v. Wade because abortion rights are like civil rights and you can't have them be state to state. So they're trying to, at least they show conviction in their position as they try to protect this right that they think that women are entitled to. And Byron Donalds was making the position, well, like, okay, well, there's plenty of people who disagree with you. At least half the country thinks it's a human and alive and etc. and that it's murder. So we get to argue about the state to state. That doesn't make any sense. It's a lot of people think it's murder, so we get to take it to the states. Bro, if it's murder, then why aren't they entitled to equal protection? And if they do get equal protection, and there's not a good reason why it shouldn't be entitled to them. And if we read the Constitution in that kind of way, I don't know, maybe we get, it's another Supreme Court case. I don't know. If we do read that the unborn or preborn are persons, then there goes abortion. You can't deprive someone of life without some kind of due process. So, but that's not the argument the Republicans are making. That's not even the argument that, and I believe Byron Donalds is articulate enough to make a good point, but that's the direction that Republicans want to head into because that's where Donald Trump is leading them. I understand they think it's such a hard issue right now, but so many people aren't competent talking about it. Like you're not like, well, this is just how things are. And we have to wait till we change hearts and minds. And we have to change hearts and minds. How are you going to change hearts and minds talking about this issue in the way that they're talking about it? They're just conceding ground. They sound ridiculous. If you think it's murder, it sounds ridiculous to be like, it's just up to the states, which indiscriminate murder anytime you want to. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. If people got together and said, we're going to have a vote, and if lynching is really popular in our state, we're going to go around lynching Black people. That's going to be our right to do that. We would not allow that state to state. That would be crazy. So we're taking really bad positions. We're taking really bad positions, and it's not going to get better. We're just eventually, if there isn't some kind of massive pushback, then we're going to go the route of other countries like Canada or something, where it's just not, where we just kind of accept that abortion is here to stay. And maybe some people are really are fine with that reality. I'm not. I'm not fine with that. Maybe the reality is that there needs to be a shift in the pro-life movement altogether. I don't know, maybe more people will go to the abolitionist side. I don't know what will eventually happen, but there needs to be some kind of shift away from the direction that Trump is leading the Republican Party. Everybody does not need to follow lockstep with his personal convictions on the matter, but you sound ridiculous. And Byron Donalds is a very smart guy. A lot of these Republicans who are taking these positions are really smart, and they can do better, but they're misinforming the public on how they should feel about these matters, and I don't appreciate it. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Oh, thank you, Bonnie Boo. You really should go debate for pro-life. I think you could change a lot of minds. Thank you very much. I do have my book, of course, guys blatantly against abortion, but I do debate sometimes on TikTok about it. I wouldn't mind like going and being invited or something, or speaking on this topic to different folks. I haven't really done that, I guess, besides like, some lessons here or there about it. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. The only thing on TikTok, one time they've like mass reported me. And I lost my privileges for a while. Sometimes people get so crazy about those conversations, but I don't really like doing panels on TikTok because there's just too many people, and it makes me, when I have to wait, it just kind of makes me want to pull my hair out. But maybe I'll do more 1v1 stuff on TikTok and talk about the subject. But it's really our leaders, our elected officials, that are so bad at talking about these issues. And then they'll like, if your issue isn't their issue, they'll just dismiss it too. Like Nikki Haley, when she was like, can we all just agree that, we shouldn't be, well, she said punishing women and stuff. And that's the main position, like, of the pro-life movement as a whole, that we should go after like the people who do the abortions, or we should go after the providers of it. But the problem with that is that the abortionists nowadays are the women themselves, because the number one way that people have abortions is through the pill. And the abolitionist movement just believes in, it's like not picking on the women, but it's just equal justice. So whoever does the crime is the one. I mean, whoever is involved in it gets in trouble, but it's just blanket. You did it. There has to be some kind of consequences. But they made the point one time, if you're not familiar with their position, there's a debate they have with Joel Berry from the Babylon Bee on their page, Abolitionist Rising. It's a gateway drug basically to their position, because Joel Berry sounded so ridiculous by the end of the conversation. But if every pro-life law in the country got enacted in every state, women could still somehow get a pill. Maybe they could make it themselves, distribute it somehow kind of way. They could go to a courthouse, they could go to the Capitol, say, I'm pregnant right now, take the pill, and have an abortion right there on the steps of the Capitol in front of police in the world. And according to every single pro-life law, there would be no way to stop them. There'd be no way to stop them, and no sort of repercussions for people doing something like that. So basically, if you don't have any kind of penalty in the law, it is basically like they have the freedom to do the thing. It's like COVID. Like in Michigan, basically, it was still not legal, I think, to actually go to have the churches and stuff open, but they said blatantly that there wouldn't be any penalties. So we're like, oh, we're reading that as we can do it. And we never closed down our church. But yeah, if people read there's no penalty for doing the thing, then they're like, okay, we can still do the thing. So that thought alone was pretty compelling. So anyway, Nikki Haley, they'll say something like it's very obvious, like it's so like, let's not even think of such a thing. But I'm like, well, okay, well, what if they have a good point? We should at least talk about it. We should at least talk about it instead of you dismissing everybody, So But they got to do whatever they want to do for no, they don't have to do it. That they choose to do and say certain things because of sound bites and how it might come off on ads and how, it might come out in mailers and how it might affect their electoral chances. But at some point, someone has to have these conversations. And I know a lot of the work is on the activists to make that stuff happen, but we cannot have these figures that we put into office or that a lot of people look up to undermining our positions. So, we can help to educate to the masses and talk to the masses about these sorts of things, but it's not good when the people on the top, say crazy stuff and start waffling on their positions because their leader says so. So anyway, that is my second closing. I'm gonna try not to really do a third. Thank you. You guys say it's a great show. Thank you guys for watching. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc., etc. If you can support, I very much do appreciate it. You guys can go to blacktnews.com/donate because it does cost to stream, run my site, all that stuff. So thank you if you can support. Check out different merchandise that we have, and you guys can also check out different books that I have. I have nonfiction books and fiction books, lots of stuff you guys can read. Most of my stuff is also on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a subscription to Kindle Unlimited and you just read through it, I will get paid. I don't have my nonfiction books on Kindle Unlimited though, so you actually have to buy those. But my fiction books are on Kindle Unlimited. So thank you guys, and I will catch you tomorrow on time unless my card breaks down or something, which it shouldn't because I actually got the new battery and stuff. So thank you guys for your patience. And again, I apologize for being late, but I'm sure you can understand. And I'll try to have that new countdown music in there tomorrow. So if you hear, some Christian rap or something at the beginning, that's my cousin. Anyway, thank you, guys.